Hello, my name is Larry Cordham, and I'm part of the team that is researching a beam turned into the University of Minnesota by John F. Maher in the early 1880s. John Maher claimed that the beam was used as the top post, the top horizontal post, to hang the 38 Native Americans that died on December 26, 1862. First of all, we could take all of the information that was very early on said about that, because it's not embellished in any way, and we can take what we have at the Blue Earth County Historical Society, and from both ends we should be able to tell how valid things are, at least within reason. So, first of all, we will take an article written December 20th, 1862. This article was written from a guy who was there just as they started to build the gallows. Now you have to remember that Lincoln has already given them one setback dates for building the gallows because they couldn't get enough rope together, and now it has come within 5 to 6 days of the actual event and they don't have anything going. So here's what's written in the Mankato record, December 20th, 1862. The military authorities are now busy making preparation for the approaching execution. The gallows is in the course of erection on the levee opposite the present Indian quarters. It is to be in the form of a diamond 24 feet square, arranged so as to hang 10 prisoners at each corner, 40 in all. A square will be formed around the gallows by the military, and the citizens and visitors are requested to occupy the sandbar on the river side from which the best view can be had. So, we can tell something about what the author is seeing. First of all, the author is very up close to this thing. He can walk right up to the site. He is looking at it from the corner. He describes it as a diamond, but he describes it as a square diamond. He describes it as 24 feet long. And it says in there, and this is a quote, "It is to be in the form of a diamond," meaning actually they haven't laid an awful lot down on the ground yet. It looks like they have just staked it out. So this guy has a very, very early view of it, more like an engineering outlook of how it's going to be. Now let's discover what happened in the next newspaper article, which was written December 24th, 1862. This thing is much more elaborate because more work has been done to the scaffolding. And so here's what it says. December 24th, 1862, printed in December 26th edition of the Mankato Independent, describes the gallows under construction. Yesterday and today, a detachment of men under the direction of Colonel Marshall have been erecting the gallows. It consists of 8 upright posts, a foot square and 14 feet high, set in sills and plates. It is 4 square. It looks like a small, old-fashioned barn frame without rafters. The length of the sills is about 24 feet. The upper edges of each plate of timber is notched so as to prevent a sharp strain on the rope. There is a series of 10 notches in the upper edge of each plate, places for 40. When 39 hang there, there will be 1 vacant notch. We can tell at this point, being he is talking about 39, that the one Native American has not received his reprieve yet, because he apparently did nothing to deserve the punishment of death. And so this is still a little bit preliminary. And he is saying that it consists of 8 upright posts. That would mean it would have a post on each corner, it would have a post in the middle, and it is set on sills and plates. So meaning that it has no real center part to it, it just has verticals only. And it says that it is about 24 feet long. Now he may not have an actual measure, but what he is doing, we believe, is walking it off, and this was really common. My father used to do tiling, and in tiling it was very common to estimate something by walking it off. They assumed that a person's foot stride was about 3 feet. So it looks like the guy must have went down and strided this out and figured that 24 feet long was about how long it was. This seems like an uncoached writing. At the first writing on December 20th, they seem to be stating to the author that it is 24 feet. In this case, it seems that the author himself is discovering that it's 24 feet by walking it off. The article further continues. A strongly platform runs around the whole structure. It is about 4 feet wide and lying half within and half without of the upright timbers. A plank covering being left out at the place where each of the 8 upright posts project through it. In the center of the enclosure of the timber is firmly set into the ground. The timber is about 20 feet high and from the top, and halfway down it is rounded and made smaller than the part below. On this rounded shaft, an iron ring will slide, which the 8 ropes will be attached to support the platform. A single rope tied to the staple of the ring will pass over the top center post and reach down to the fastening near the ground. So we have a lot more information here. They're saying that now that there is a platform that is going to slide up and down on the vertical post. This is strange because almost all gallows that I've ever seen or ever looked at had a trap door. In this case, the whole floor falls out. So it's a rather different thing. It's an engineering feat because there has never been a hanging in the United States that has had so many condemned to death at once. Okay, so then another thing that it says is that in the center there's a post that sticks up about 20 feet high. There's 8 ropes tied to the platform, and the platform is pulled up by these 8 ropes hooked to a ring around this center post. And then there's 1 rope that leads up over the top of the post from a pulley and is pulled down the other side, and it is fastened to the bottom. And a strike from an axe simply cuts the 1 rope and all of the platform drops to the ground. So this is a lot more information than we have before. A little bit earlier in the article, it also mentions 10 notches on the upper edge of each plate, places for 40. So we have a third article, and the third article was written by a man from the New York Times. Now the guy from the New York Times is going to be in a much different disposition than the first 2 people. The guy from the New York Times is not going to be able to walk directly up to the scaffolding. Once the scaffolding was complete, from then on the military would naturally secure the perimeter of the thing and allow nobody but the authorized people to get near it because of sabotage, people tinkering with it, or possibly even people getting hurt from it. He's not going to be able to get next to it. So if the best place to view it is the levee, I would say from the looks of this article that's written, he is on the levee. Let me read it. The scaffold, the instrument upon which the extreme sentence of the law is to be performed, was constructed in a very simple yet ingenious manner. It was erected on the main street directly opposite the jail and between it and the river. The shape of the structure is a perfect square and not, as been stated, a diamond. The cause of the latter error being made because the sides of the structure was not parallel with the front line of the jail, but being built on an oblique across the roadway presented a point of angle to both the river and the jail. So, we have some insights into this guy's point of view. For one thing, he appears to be standing on the levee next to the river, which also gives away the fact that the guy on December 20th was saying that it was a diamond because he was standing out in front of the jail. And this guy has corrected him, but on the other hand, he hasn't really corrected anything because a diamond is a square in the first article, and this guy is stating that it is a square too. Let's read on a little bit more and see how many consistent statements we can find. The base of the gallows consisted of a square formed by 4 rough logs, 1 foot each in diameter and 20 feet long. From each corner of this square rose a heavy round pole running up to the height of about 20 feet, while the center came another but heavier timber rising to about the same height. An elevation of 6 feet from the ground there was a platform so constructed as to slide easily up and down the corner pillars, and a large opening center around the middle mast. From each corner of this platform, a rope or a cable was fastened to a movable iron ring that slid up and down the middle mast by means of a rope fastened to one of its tabs. Based on our information from the news articles, what should it be like? What matches? Well, for one thing, the log should not have been used before 1862. Our sources say that it was new cut oak, so it should be a brand new log in use in 1862. It should have a mortise hole in the center. It should have 10 positions cut in the top of the log for ropes. It should be about 23 to 24 feet long, depending on how it was mortised into the uprights. And it should be 1 foot square by 2 different sources. The man on the 24th that could get very close to it said that it was a foot square, and the New York Times reporter at a distance judged it at 1 foot. No other figure than 1 foot is available. Well, if that's what it's supposed to be, what is it really like? Well, for one thing, it does not appear that it was new cut oak. It seems to have been used before 1862. There are 4 mortise holes made into the side of it that are blind mortises. They couldn't have been used in the gallows. They couldn't have been used as knee braces in the gallows because a good mortise joint doesn't wobble anyway, so it doesn't need knee braces. And as far as the new cut oak goes, we had 2 people that would know what oak looks like, even at age. Myself, I don't. But they both agreed that it was not oak. So we have a problem there in the type of wood that it is supposed to be as opposed to the type that it is. They say it's red elm. It should have a mortise hole in the center, and it does. It has a through mortise hole in what would be the center of the log had it been not cut off. It should have 10 notches. If it had not been cut off, it would have had at least 10 notches in it, the size that would handle just the width of a rope. It should be 23 or 24 feet long. That is a kind of a variable. It's not likely that after Maher got done cutting it to size that it would be 23 or 24 feet long. And it should be 1 foot square. It is not 1 foot square. There's a big problem there. The thing, when it was wet, was probably 8 by 10. Now after it shrunk and dried out, it is about 7 by 9. So we have a discrepancy there that's hard to overcome. So here is our main question. Did John F. Maher actually buy the gallows that the Native Americans were hung on in 1862? And the answer is no, he did not. A physician named Brown bought the standing gallows for a little over $30. Now it would seem odd that a physician would need a gallows, but it is described as a barn without the rafters in the second article that I read. And Brown was also into the real estate business, and he had properties out of county. There was one report that someone had stole the timber off of his land and that they had been caught and fined $5 for it. Now we don't know if the timber was the gallows timber, and we don't know if the timbers was just standing tree timber, but it says one thing: Brown needed timber and lumber. And he probably needed it because he had no buildings, and the gallows would be a perfect thing for him. He wouldn't have to cut down the trees, he wouldn't have to take them to the sawmill, he wouldn't have to mortise them, he wouldn't have to tinion them, and he wouldn't have to put them up by himself. Because you have to remember, you're dealing with something really heavy. 1 inch of a 12 by 12 oak log weighs 5 pounds, meaning that the support for the ropes on the gallows log would have weighed about 1,500 pounds wet. That's a lot of lumber to be throwing around and a lot of timber to be throwing around in the woods. It would be very easy for him to deal with something that he could assemble and tip up and just simply make a building out of. So We don't have anything that says that John F. Maher ever had the beam he claims to have had. Another interesting claim is that John Maher says that the beam is real only about a week after Dr. Brown dies. Dr. Brown is the only one that could call Maher a liar or say that he is untruthful, and he is now dead. Also, the beam was bought at a military auction in 1864. Maher not only made a claim about the beam and the floor, but he also made a claim about the uprights that were used on the gallows. He said that the uprights were used in a warehouse that he built, and then when the warehouse burned down, if people liked, they could go take a piece of the gallows beams out of it, and they would have something legitimate. But this time he is caught. This time Ben Pay steps forward and says that Maher did not build the warehouse, that he had built the warehouse and sold it to Maher, so Maher's claim is false. The whole affair about the purchase of the beam is rather transparent. The military quartermaster decided that he would sell the gallows and he would sell the log Indian quarters at an auction. Maher and Brown both had the same chance to buy the gallows. It is proven that Maher was in town by paper articles that appeared in the same issue that the gallows report as being sold was done in. Maher could have bought the gallows by simply outbidding Brown, but he never did. It is not very likely that Brown would buy the gallows and then turn around and sell the gallows to Maher for more money when Maher could have just outbid Brown in the first place.